in Medjugorje. So I knew then that I wanted to come back. And I felt really guilty almost for wanting to come again because we'd gotten this gift. So I contacted this travel company that we had booked the trip through, and I said, is there any way I could earn a trip? And they said, well, if you get 40 people, we'll give you a free trip. So I got 44 people to come, including my pastor. And they didn't just give me a free trip, they sent me as the tour guide. I knew nothing about being a tour guide. So I guess they went
from your actual tour, right? Yeah.
My grandchildren. Our guide and my grandchildren.
How beautiful.
And
okay.
So we came, and as I said, I knew nothing about being a tour guide. And the lady who had given us the trip the first time had said to me, when you are up on Apparition Hill, please bring me back 10 stones from the Hill of Apparitions. I said, sure. So we get up there. Up here, right?
There we go. Yeah.
And in those days, they didn't have the restrictions about being quiet up there. So we formed a circle and we prayed the rosary together. And while we were praying the rosary, I remembered about the 10 stones, and I looked down at the ground. There weren't any stones. I mean, there were big rocks, but where the apparition site is, that had been picked clean by all the other people that had been there. Right. So I thought, well, I'll have to get them a little bit further away from the actual spot. Mm-hmm. So we finished our rosary, and we decided to just stay there for a while and have some quiet time. So we were sitting, and I had my back to the cross, or where the statue is now, and I heard this noise, and I turned around and I saw this little lady with a babushka, mm-hmm. and she had picked up a rather large rock, and she was slamming it against another rock, just making this really loud noise. And I remember feeling a little bit annoyed because it was so peaceful until she started doing that. So I turned back around and tried to ignore it, and a few minutes later, there was a tap on my shoulder, and I turned and looked, and it was the same lady, only now she was young. When I had looked at her before, she looked like an elderly lady, but she had a very young face, same clothing, same scarf on her head, babushka, they said, but a very young, beautiful face. And she looked at me, and she motioned for me to follow her. And I said, me, and she shook her head yes. So I got up and I followed her, and she went back over where she had been banging that rock. And there were 10 stones that she had made by breaking the rock. And she pointed to those stones, and that they were for me. And I bent down to pick them up, and I had a plastic bag with me, and I was counting them as I was picking them up, and there were exactly 10 stones. And I looked up to say thank you, and she had vanished. She just was not there. And so that was really amazing. Really, really amazing. So
that's the second trip, right?
That was the second trip, but there was more.
Yeah, you told me. Tell me